what are we, round 12?
Round 11.
Oh, man. So
Deutschland.
The Germans have arrived.
The Germans.
Hockenheim.
So did you like the race, Joel?
The rain that never came.
It had everything to do with how the race unfolded, didn't it?
Oh, it did.
Towards the
when you got to, what was it,
like
that 42?
Yeah.
Around that 42?
Yeah.
When the threat of rain came.
The problem was that there was so much wet weather front supposedly meant to be blowing in that in the end no team actually was able to predict essentially what was going to happen at
and
that
look,
point.
To everybody's credit, keep in mind the fact that it wasn't a few minutes after the end of the race, it was like a torrential downpour at Hockenheim.
Amazing amount of rain that arguably was meant to have taken place during the race itself, but it didn't.
It didn't.
And so here we found ourselves with teams guessing. Some got it right, some got it wrong, most of them didn't.
Daddies top 5.
At number 5, I think we can't overlook the team orders issued by Ferrari and Mercedes to both Bottas and Raikkonen, absolute gentlemen through and through. The only difference between the two of them is Raikkonen has a funny bone and really asks for clear direction. And in this case, he wanted the team orders to clearly state move over for Vettel.
Yeah.
Back in the early 2000s, if you asked a race driver to move over, you would say move over. These days, there was all this political commentary. There's just a whole swathe of just white noise, and Raikkonen's like, just get on with it and tell me what you want me to do. So,
what do you want me to do?
Do you want me to move over? Yes. Good, I'll move over. It had an influence, I think, on a few things. First of all, Vettel. The position of Vettel's tyre change at that particular point in time. He only put tyres on. He felt that he was sitting behind Raikkonen with a faster pace and he was getting more rear tyre wear.
He was.
And as a result of that, we're talking about team orders here. Team orders are that, let me through, I've got faster pace, I've got tyre degradation, you can see the heat of my tyres, let me through, and in the end that's what happened.
Yep.
Yeah. So
straight after that, I think Vettel did actually prove that he had the faster pace. It didn't take him, 2 laps to basically pick up 3 seconds on Raikkonen.
Remembering, though, that Raikkonen was the first to pit and he was on much older tyres. Number 4, Max Verstappen, Alonso, Gasly and Leclerc, I think it may have been. Gasly, the only one on wets, and the other 3 on intermediates.
Toro Rosso and Gasly running off to get wets. What's up with that, man?
The commentators are poking all sorts of fun at that one. That was an amazing. That was an amazing change that not even the worst teams could typically have made a mistake with. That one. That was great. Simply, all the teams were reacting to what was meant to be rain that never came, as Joel said.
Oh, absolutely wrecked their race. Alonso doing very well, in a clear position for P6. Tyre degradation aside, I think he definitely was in a position to pick up points. Very, very unlucky to deal with this issue of tyre management, which ultimately relegated him to DNF.
It did, yeah, strangely enough. Look, he waited as long as he could. He got as high into lap 31 before he actually needed to physically do a change. But he was the first of the field starting in P11 that started on softs. Everyone else is on ultra soft. So he had the chance to go quite long into the race, into the pit change window, and did so. But then it was around that time, wasn't it, Joel, that the weather was supposedly meant to enable him to go onto inters or wets, as the case may be. Never happened, so he had to change anyway. That was his first pit stop. Then they made a miscalculation on when the weather actually did come in, and then he changed onto inters for his second pit stop. And then only a matter of a few laps later, they all realised that the inters were just getting far too hot and degrading because the rain didn't come.
That's right.
Third pit stop, fell behind Van Dorn. Van Dorn only took 2 pit stops for the whole race. It didn't actually move on to inters at all. And in the end, he DNF'd, as you said.
That's right.
Fascinating.
And Van Dorn had car troubles himself.
So it really kind of is sort of the point 3 as well, around this whole chaos with the inclement weather that was supposed to come in that never did, which had given rise to all this. But we haven't really touched much on Verstappen. Verstappen did come in quite early in that pit window as well, again under orders by Red Bull. But he drove such a fantastic race this race, didn't he? Verstappen, really mature driving from him, really liking the way his mid-season is panning out.
Arguably, though, I know that you were praising him for pulling off on that corner where he was basically trying to push Kimi.
That one, turn 1.
Yeah, pushing Kimi. this is me. I actually think that Max should have just pushed for it. And I think that if he had continued to push, it's very likely Kimi would have given way.
Maybe, hard one to
Possibly.
know. But look, maybe he just felt that Raikkonen was already committed to that corner and decided that it was, you know, through better judgment, it wasn't the right thing to do. Verstappen, historically, may have gone for everything. But in this particular instance, he didn't. He got fourth, so it wasn't the worst day out for him. That same can't be said, unfortunately, for local town hero, Ricciardo.
Daniel. It's not his year, unfortunately. Well, he's had his wins.
Yep.
But it hasn't been, you know, he's had some really, really bad luck with engines this year.
But look, ultimately, Ricciardo started in P19 and had to come through the field like Hamilton, who himself had issues starting out in P14. And Hamilton had success starting out on softs and was able to get more heat into them quicker than Ricciardo. Ricciardo really sort of struggled at the back of the field for quite some time, but then he did retire, as you said, with engine issues, ironically, which is the very reason why he started in P19 to begin with.
What was the exact issue that ended up? I didn't actually pick it up at the end. Was it something to do with the MG UK again?
Look, they haven't actually specifically commented. All they've said at this point in time, or post-race, was that it was engine related, which is what started that interweb rumour that I showed you. That said, the issue with the engine ultimately meant, Joel, that it was something that perceptibly could have been avoided. On to number 2. It has to be the Vettel crash. I think the Vettel crash set about, again, a chain of events there. Mate. In lap 52, into that left-hander, a little bit of moisture on the trap already by this point. And unfortunately for Vettel, I mean, he drove a brilliant race up to that point. He qualified brilliantly. The Ferrari has the winning edge right now.
I really feel for Vettel in this scenario, to be honest.
He was gutted, wasn't he?
Oh, look. And he handled it very well as well, in my opinion. Like, I know that there's a lot of Vettel haters out there who basically jumped onto the internet and they've just gone, oh, look at him chuck his little temper tantrum. It's like, come on. If you were just winning the race and you're in the lead and you just lost your lead to the World Championship, you would kick a little dirt too. He was so disappointed. You could clearly hear him crying in his helmet when he crashed. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Man, I feel for you. Like, seriously, you can chuck as many temper tantrums as you want, because I would have done the same. But at least you blamed yourself.
And he fronted up for a very, very humble post-race debrief comment or two afterwards, saying that he likes sandboxes as a child, but prefers in this instance to not like them as an adult. I thought that was a lovely
That was
touch.
classic. That was classic. He handled it very, very well. Very mature.
But what actually happened in this particular instance, as we know, he came around the left-hander, a bit of moisture on the track, as I said. Apparently it got a bit loose and he tried to straighten up, but there's just no road to run off on at that
exactly.
point. And the only thing that could happen was straight to the barriers, and really, really, really sad for him. Mentionables.
We are Mentionables.
Touched on Hamilton starting P14, Ricciardo starting P19, different strategies, same tyres, different outcome, but Ricciardo finished with a DNF, and Hamilton got first, as we said.
Chaos. Grosjean. Your mate Grosjean. How did he do this race?
Well, look, there's a lot of speculation that he's on his last legs, and it's probably to a point long overdue. However, he did manage to have a great battle, got quite high into the field, then they fell to P11, P12, both the Haas's, that is, and then had a massive surge at the end in the final 10 laps, and then managed to claim back 5 points to finish in P6. That's monumental, given that Magnussen behind him had started in P12 with him in P11, Grosjean P11, but only managed to get one position. So, look, I think it's a little too late, to be frank, though, because the noise is still out there, and there's talk about dropping him next year and people coming in to replace him. You can't question the fact that he's had so much bad luck, mostly due down to his
driver error. It's his own fault.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I know I give you a lot of hassle for the way that you talk about Grosjean, but let's be real here. Let's be real. He's having a terrible season, and it's not to do with his car. There's a whole video in here, in actual fact, in terms of performance, where we really should be analysing the back of the field for who ultimately is the poorest performing driver on the track at the moment.
He's certainly one of the poorer performers. If it weren't for this weekend, I think a lot more scrutiny would have been.
Let's very, very briefly discuss the fact that Williams did actually manage to find some pace, but unfortunately, engine errors, they both DNF'd out. It was very, very unlucky considering the fact that it looks like they're moving in the right direction.
Look, they were able to recover a little bit back in terms of lost territory with poor downforce errors. This week it wasn't about DRS, deactivation, activation problems on the rear wing. It was all to do with the front wing, and they largely believe that they've taken care of that. And actually, it's a really good pace of qualifying. What they weren't able to do was finish, and unfortunately, that counts. The poor pit stop made on Bottas's car late into the race on lap 52 there, where they actually held him longer through. So I think with the front right tyre not being changed as quickly and as sufficiently as it
he
should
was
have
held
done.
up in the pit.
He got held up, and that, I believe,
Why?
has as much of a bearing on the race as the number 1 point of Joel.
Heinz? That's one in German, isn't it? So number 1, Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Got to give props where props is actually due. Started in P14, did a very, very good job getting himself into a lead position.
Yep.
And there was a little bit of an incident that happened where his team said, box, box, box. And he went, now? And they went, oh, wait, hang on. And then he skipped the entrance and decided to just go across the track, back on.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and arguably, if he had have boxed at that point in time, it would have been double stacked with Bottas right in front of him, and that would have been a not so good thing.
Absolutely.
But the other attribution to this is the fact that because he didn't end up changing his tyres at all, he moved straight into P1.
He did. And that was, to be frank, the only thing he could have done, because Kimi did pit, and the idea behind his particular decision to go against team orders and the confusion that reigned as a result of going in and going out and then crossing over the pit lane grass, which only ever resulted therefore in a reprimand by the stewards at the end, but he's still
he got a
looked
rap on the
into
wrist
by other teams, is that he was actually able to regain P1 as a result of people going in. But there's a few things to note. The first is what you've touched on. Yep, the confusion as you go in, and then second, the penalty to possibly be issued to him thereafter for going over. Third is that he gained P1, but the other two were in the pits, Raikkonen and Bottas by this point. I also think it's worth noting that Bottas was challenging Hamilton for P1 when he did come out of the pits, and almost was able to pull off the move. But again, you have to think back to that delayed pit of Bottas's team, which has caused him the inability to be able to get that delta that he was requiring. But even if he had a great pit stop and he was able to get in front, I don't think Hamilton's tyres would have warmed up as quickly as the ultra softs that Bottas was on. So Bottas would have run away with first.
Yes.
But he didn't. But at the point that Hamilton was in front of Bottas, that's when the team stepped in and said, listen, let's not risk this. Bottas pulled back. Bottas agreed. So there was a number of...
When he hit a hold. He said, okay.
He complied. He complied. He did a great job.
Again, we've had a change in the guard. So Lewis now leading the World Championship.
Good segue. Can I just jump in here and say I was quite confused and bemused all in one by the spiritual angle that has now been taken by Hamilton. I get all the criticism he's been having, but I just think he needs to keep his powder dry here and not sort of revert to spiritual references of God and cleansing of the track and all the negativity that comes as a result of the after-race rains. Just keep it factual, Hamilton. Stay on topic, stay relevant, stay technical, and people will actually love you for it.
Look,
but
that's
he's
true.
gotten all emotional.
That's true. But look, this is the way that it is.
That was my serious face, mate.
It is. All right. And look, all I'm going to say is, Lewis, if you're out there listening, which you probably aren't, because who the hell am I? But if you were, I would just say to you that in doing what you're doing, you are just inviting criticism.
Yeah.
However, if I was getting paid $20 million a year, or whatever it is that he's on, which I think is actually closer to 30, isn't it? You do whatever you want. If you want to wear robes and look like a Jedi Master on GQ, do so. What you got to do, okay, is you got to take a leaf out of Kimi's book. I love that comment where David Coulthard just says, so, I see there's a little bit of a slippage on the road there. What do you think about the Mercedes? Do they have a lot of slippage? And Kimi just goes, I don't know. I only drive my car.
Yeah.
What other answer were you expecting?
Massive fan of Kimi. Stay tuned as to what happens with that fellow this year.
He doesn't get enough credit. He's still on pace.
I think there's more of Kimi to come, which is going to be fascinating in this year.
He's
has
still on pace, people.
Rarely dropped out of P5. Final segment of the day, Joel.
Driver of the day.
I'm going to leave this one to you because you got it right last week.
I took the previous driver of the day away from Lewis, but this week you've got to give it to him. The man ran a really, really good race.
Yep.
You know, P14 to
Great time
1.
management.
And first time ever for him to actually have got a win when he hasn't started in P6 or higher.
Correct.
So, well done. Good tyre management strategy on his team's behalf, staying on the ultra softs.
Yep.
Smart move.
Yep.
Team got it right finally.
Well done.
Mercedes. Golf club.
Next race coming up very soon in Hungary.
In fact, very, very, very soon, because we've been a little bit late with our post-race debut.
Sorry guys, other deadlines and other important things coming up, but this is our priority too. So
we'll see you in
2 days.
Yeah. See you later.
Guten Tag.